delivering the goods directly to you. Like a boss.
Boss battles! I just love them. Boss battles can be great for a number of reasons, whether they're challenging, are great tests of what you've learned, have thrilling atmosphere and music, or are just plain fun. So today, I'm doing a cliche topic and counting down my favorite boss battles ever. I was going to make this a top 10, but there are so many bosses that I love that I just had to expand the list. Also, keep in mind that these are my favorite boss battles, not necessarily the best. That's a debate that would never be settled. As for the rules, these are only bosses that I've faced, only one per franchise, and no final bosses. That's for another list. Also, a boss doesn't have to be hard for it to be on here. I just have to have enjoyed the fight. Finally, there will be spoilers for certain games, so I'll give you a warning if it's particularly significant. Anyways, preparations are complete, and that means it's game time! When people talk about Silver the Hedgehog, it's usually with contempt, mostly due to his shitty boss fights in Sonic 06. So, how do you make up for such horrible fights then? With a better one, that's how! The rival battle with Silver in the console version of Sonic Generations is everything that the fights in Sonic 06 weren't. It was challenging, it played well, and most of all, it was fun. It features modern Sonic racing along a ruined highway while Silver attacks you, whether it's by trying to smash you with road debris, launching Psycho Cut, or creating a psychic battering ram. Throughout the fight, you need to respond to each of his attacks in order to find an opening, or use his own attacks against him. Thankfully, you don't have to deal with glitches or annoying one-liners. It all leads up to... Meteor Smash! Ladies and gentlemen, it's bowling night at Crisis City! As Silver tries to pick up the spare using you as the pin, you have to frantically dodge Silver's attacks until you can land the final hit, leaving Silver to be crushed by the weight of the world, I mean his attack, on his shoulders. This fight is a colossal improvement on the embarrassment Silver was in 06. The setting is well designed, the music is intense, and it's just fun to play, though it is a bit on the short side. And while you can say that there are other bosses that should be here instead, I say it's no use.
Did I really just write that?
The World Ends With You is, in my opinion, one of the best games in the DS library. Its story, setting, and characters, not to mention its unique combat system, were a breath of fresh air in the RPG genre. Sho Minamoto is probably the boss that puts this system to the test most effectively. As the game master of the second week of the Reaper's game, Sho makes no secret of the fact that he's a math nerd. So what, he's a bookworm with nerdy glasses and a pocket protector? Nope! Try a murderous punk with a megaphone. Not to mention, at this point, Neku's under the impression that this factoring hectopascal is the reason he's in the game in the first place. So this battle has a lot of emotion behind it as well. Aside from the setup, this fight tests your mastery of the game's combat system. This is because Sho only appears on one screen with a taboo noise he summons attacking you on the other, and only the person with the light puck can do significant damage to either. What this amounts to is that multitasking is essential to winning this fight, as well as maintaining your combos. Oh, and about those taboo noise, Sho summons them throughout the fight and won't even attack you himself until you've taken out 4 of them. Not to mention you're having Neku dodge his attacks which do a zeta crap ton of damage. And in the end, instead of your typical villain's lament which you've seen more times than a lowest common denominator, Sho tries to balance the equation by subtracting you with a level I flare, which damages anyone whose level is a multiple of 1. So yeah, Sho's not only zeta powerful, but his personality and battle are a prime factor as to why he's on here. Still don't get it? Do the math! When I first saw Jean-Francois in Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure, he seemed like a good enough man. I mean, he seemed to really care for the orphans in his charge, which included Marie. Definitely seemed trustworthy. Perhaps a bit too trustworthy. Which means I should have seen this coming a mile away.
Phantom R! Jean-Francois, you bastard!
Yeah, ever since that moment, I couldn't wait to throttle that backstabbing snake. And wouldn't you know it, when I got the chance, it was some of the most fun I've had in a genre that lets you challenge the devil himself in a guitar battle and proves that Bowser actually has moves. The gameplay pretty much amounts to a musical game of Simon Says, but everything else makes the fight that much more fun. From the magma chamber setting to the music, which combines Bach's fugue in G minor with beats and guitar riffs of all things. And come on, don't tell me that the interludes don't put a smile on your face.
But this weapon is invincible. Sorry, but it's very invincible.
Oh, Phantom R never stopped being awesome. Yeah, this fight's a bit on the easy side, but seriously, you can't say that it doesn't feel cathartic to give that power-hungry jerk what's coming to him. And really, what would you expect from one of the best rhythm games in recent years? Now all we need is a sequel, or, dare I say it, Layton crossover! Ah yes, Madworld, a game that pits you against sci-fi rejects, horror rejects, samurai movie rejects, and a walking wind generator who clearly forgot that World War II ended decades ago. Yeah, Von Twirling Killer is literally an embodiment of nature's fury. He's got wind turbines for arms that can generate tornadoes and deliver punches that strangely deal more damage than the tornadoes themselves.
No, seriously. You take more damage from a punch than a tornado. And this is why I don't question video games!
Even after you take out one of his turbines and get the chance to use it against him, Hair Cyclone proves that he's still a threat with a turbine-powered spin kick. Yeah, that plus your nads would equal instant sterilization. That is, unless you're a badass like Jack. And once you've taken out his other arm, you're treated to one of the most awesome finishers in the entire game, in which the Gestapo reject gets shredded in his own turbine. Not only is this boss fun, but his design is so original that it's downright brilliant. Also, I have to give credit to Howard and Kreese. Their commentary is hilarious. Seriously, how do they come up with this stuff? And if they don't, then who the fuck do they hire? Still, if a boss this original is only number 12, the rest of these guys must have really blown me away. And cue facepalm!
What? I haven't done that in a while.
Having grown up with Nintendo, I missed out on a lot of classics on the original PlayStation. In fact, it was only thanks to Maverick Hunter 075 that I even gave the Crash Bandicoot franchise a shot. And if you know about Maverick, which I'm guessing most of you do, then you can probably figure out where I'm going with this.
3, 2, 1, go!
You're just trolling me, right? Seriously, get that shit out of here. This is Dr. Entropy from Crash Bandicoot Warped.
Now you're on my time, you little skunk! Give me the crystals!
Okay, this fight is fun. His projectiles and lasers require well-timed jumps and dodges to avoid, and they become faster and more numerous as the fight goes on. The platforming becomes trickier as well, requiring more precision in order to actually reach him and land a hit. But what really sells this fight is the setting. Throughout the fight, Entropy will change the environment to different time periods you've encountered in levels throughout the game. This makes perfect sense because he's the guy who invented this time machine in the first place. Wait, if he made this time machine, doesn't he have to maintain it? Uh-oh.
You insolent, insignificant morons! By defeating Entropy, you have placed us all in grave risk!
Crash, Coco, you must realize that this time twister machine is very delicate. Without Dr. Entropy's constant care and control, who knows what it will do?
Well, that escalated rather quickly.
And Maverick, if you're watching this, no, I haven't beaten the game yet. I'll get to that in due time.
I can understand some of the flaws with Okami, but it's still a game I can appreciate for what it is. Its art style and roots in Japanese mythology made for a mythos that pulled me in, and I really liked the gameplay as well as most of the boss fights. Orochi, for example, took pretty much every last detail from Shinto myth. The problem here was that you had to fight him 3 separate times! Look, I enjoy boss rushes, I play Mega Man for crying out loud, but even I can admit, this is overkill! Besides, in terms of gameplay, Lechku and Nechku have old Snake Eyes beat hands down. Unlike in Twin Peaks, these owls are exactly what they seem. These clockwork phantoms are responsible for sending Kamui into endless winter, forcing you to fight Orochi again, and nearly killing Shiranui, so a fight like this is one you'd expect to be satisfying, and is it ever? On the gameplay front, this fight is pretty straightforward. However, instead of relying primarily on one skill, this battle requires you to use several, depending on which trick Lechiku and Nechiku decide to pull. These attacks are taken from previous bosses and enemies, which should give you a hint as to what you need to do. The right counter will stun the owl using it, leading to my favorite part of the fight. Here, your fighting buddy Oki will form a bow on his back, and you have to launch him at your stunned prey like an arrow, giving you the chance to knock him down. From there, you unleash your primal fury until the Storm Owl knockoffs are nothing but scrap. This is a fight that delivers both in its gameplay and its atmosphere, and it's a true testament to the power of teamwork. Not to mention they're the only bosses that you only have to face once! A fighting buddy. If you don't have one, get one! One of my favorite parts of the story of Tales of the Abyss was the rivalry between the protagonist Luke and his rival Ash the Bloody. As it turns out, to make a really long story short, Ash is actually the real Luke who was kidnapped by the main antagonist Van, who desired his power of hyper-resonance in order to overturn the prophecy known as the Score. Van then created a replica to take his place, and while Luke did escape, the replica had already assumed his identity. Burning with hatred, Luke returned to Van's service under the name of Ash the Bloody, but began secretly plotting against him upon learning of his plan to replace everyone on Aldred with replicas. Ash crosses paths with the new Luke and his party, but even though they're essentially on the same side, they are never on good terms. Considering that Ash's life was essentially stolen by this inferior copy, yeah, he'd have every reason to be pissed. This comes to a head near the game's finale. By this time, Van is about to bring his plans to fruition, and both Luke and Ash are desperately trying to stop him. Sadly, they both fall into the same trap, from which only one can escape. Naturally, there's only one way to settle this.
I don't even have a past to lose, but I've still decided that I'm me. It doesn't matter what you think. Here I am. If that's the source of the strength you're talking about, then I won't lose! Well said. I will make those words your last replica!
I'm sorry. I thought this would be short.
Okay, the setup alone is enough to give this fight merit, but it's helped even more by how it plays out like an actual fight. Ash doesn't follow any set pattern, instead fighting like an actual person would. Well, as close to an actual person as someone who has access to magic. What this amounts to is that instead of having a set strategy, you need to respond to him and strike back when you have a chance. The clash of equals is further emphasized by the boss theme, a remix of the opening entitled The Meaning of Birth. Even still, this is a memorable clash of clone versus original, and it really feels like you're facing yourself.
I'm sorry, I have to do this.
If you were to ask me who is best Belmont, who do you think I would say? No. No. No, for crying out loud, it's Julius! You know, the guy who destroyed Dracula for good, the guy who still hasn't gotten his own game. I covered this guy before in the most viewed video on my channel, for God's sakes! Since I've covered this fight before, I'll be brief about the build-up. Soma's just discovered that he's the reincarnation of Dracula, Arikato tells him that there's a source of chaos he needs to destroy so that he doesn't become a full-on bloodsucker, and Julius fights Soma because it's his duty to destroy Dracula at all costs.
Okay, was that short enough for you?
Julius is a formidable opponent, bringing not only his whip, but his martial arts skills, both of which can seriously hurt you. He also brings his backdash, complete with invincibility frames, but those are nothing compared to his superpowered cross of immense destruction. I mean, how does that attack wreck the background, for crying out loud? Even if you escape that, this is the point where Julius takes off the kid gloves and breaks out the sub-weapons. Creepy cool crosses, holy water of burning divinity, and that axe. This is a tough fight, and it will keep you on your toes throughout. Also, I love the boss theme here, but if you've seen my Castlevania list, you know that already. And keep in mind, at this point in the series chronology, Julius is 55 years old! Forget Chuck Norris, this is a man!
You know what? Never mind.
So yeah, Skyward Sword. I can't think of a single Zelda game that has divided the fanbase as much as this one. Except maybe Zelda 2. People are divided about the motion controls. People are divided about the game's world. People are divided about this particular incarnation of Zelda. But regardless on your thoughts on the game, one thing that most people agree on is that the Ancient Cistern was the best dungeon in the game, not to mention the best water dungeon in the franchise. Aside from taking advantage of Link's newfound ability to actually swim, this dungeon was not only gorgeous, but also based on a Buddhist legend. So it should come as no surprise that the big baddie guarding the precious heart container happens to be a giant robotic Ashura.
Wrong Ashura! Man, what is with my image grabber today?
So yeah, Galactos is friggin' awesome! I mean, he's a giant 6-armed machine of death, and his design is amazing! The fight starts with him rooted to the ground as he throws out giant friggin' axes, followed by slamming him into the ground long enough for you to tear him apart piece by piece with your whip. What, is Link secretly a Belmont too? After you break his guard and hack at the beast's core for a bit, he pulls himself out of the ground and holy shit, those swords are huge! From there, Galactos goes berserk with his blades and even summons bokoblins to pester you. Once again, you wait for him to get stuck, tear his arms apart, and... You've gotta be kidding me. Yes! 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 You actually get to pick up one of his giant swords and chop him to pieces with it. This is an excellent battle that combines awesome design, intense challenge, and an amazing boss theme. It's no wonder this fight is loved so much. Hey, what can I say? I like my bosses how I like my music. Heavy and metal. You know those villains that just won't stay dead? Yeah, Ridley is so connected with the Metroid franchise that the writers will find any reason to resurrect him.
I actually have a checklist of those. Let's see.
Mechanical clone?
Check.
Infuse him with Phazon?
Check.
Possession of corpse by X-Parasite?
Check.
Actual clone that gives Samus a close encounter with post-traumatic stress disorder?
Check.
Literally crawling out of the depths of hell?
Actually, that's the one thing they haven't done with him yet. We'll see how long that lasts.
Mechanically enhanced body? Yeah, they did that twice, which brings us to the Meta-Ridley battle from Metroid Prime. By this point in the game, you may have forgotten about this bastard space pirate until he destroys your only means of reaching your final battle. So now it's time to show off the fruits of your planet-wide training regimen. To make a long story short, this guy is... claws down? Okay, claws down ferocious. In the air he's a threat thanks to his plasma breath and homing missiles, and on the ground he's even more of a threat because of his breath, razor-sharp claws, high-speed charging, and, oh yeah, that freaking tail of his! Seriously, how many whips are we packing into this video? Oh, and Ridley proves that he's smart here by actually protecting his weak point until you stun him. This is a fight that puts all your skills to the test, with incredible atmosphere, awesome music, and intensity that hasn't been seen before or since in Metroid. Not to mention that it's so satisfying when the temple reactivates and sends Ridley plummeting to his doom. This fight set a high bar for future battles with the Beast. It's also why I look forward to these fights no matter how many bullshit excuses the writers find to bring him back.
If it isn't the heir to the throne of the roaming Rulo, leader of the space pirate band known across the universe as the Gaizak, Prince Vorkin.
In a game like The Wonderful 101, where the boss fights consist of stuff like giant squids, snakes, and three-headed dragons, Prince Vorkin was probably the only antagonist in the game who actually fought you on your level. That's probably why I found his boss fight so satisfying. That, and his character was actually pretty interesting. He's cunning and ruthless, yeah, but at the same time he carries a certain charm and sophistication about him. Also, he's voiced by Quentin Flynn. Yes, that Quentin Flynn. These fights test your skills with knowing when to dodge and when to counter, not to mention they're fierce, frantic, and chaotic as all hell. They're also accompanied by one of the best boss themes in the entire game. However, the final encounter takes everything about these fights up to 101. After that sexy space cop Immorta reveals the surprisingly tragic story behind the magnificent bastard, you find him at the top of the final goddess statue, only to find out that he's already keel-hauled one of his alleged allies.
Allies? Does the New York Fats ally with the Dizbong?
After some more intimidating and humorous banter, the fight kicks into high gear right away. On the downside, you can't recruit allies before or during the fight, so you're probably outnumbered here. Thankfully, you have that sexy space cop Immorta to help you out, and she's powerful enough to make the French dip look redundant. And if you thought the regular fights were intense, Ho-ho, just wait until you drop his health bar for the first time. After one of the game's well-done QuickTime events, Forkin unveils his trump card. Yeah, he has his own unlimited form, and everything just takes a level in badass. The music is more dramatic, the combat is even more frantic, and everything feels so much more satisfying. And the end result makes you feel like the game's story has taken a turn for the darker. I would say more, but I don't want to spoil any more of the game because more people need to play it! Oh well, at least there aren't any...
Aw, come on!
Anybody who says that the Wii was a kiddie system clearly hasn't played the No More Heroes games. These games delivered over-the-top bloody violence, offbeat humor, and adult innuendos aplenty.
Down with fucking dog!
Not to mention some surprising character development, especially in the second game. As Travis climbs the ranks in his search for revenge, he begins to realize that the UAA's fights are more than just a game. This development is displayed in the fights against Margaret and Captain Vladimir, but it truly comes to a head in his battle against the UAA's rank 2 and my rank 4, Alice Twilight. Alice excels not only as a boss, but as a character as well. Unlike most of the other assassins in the game, Alice has become weary of her life as an assassin and has long since come to realize the futility of this blood sport. Funny, Travis has been beginning to realize the same thing. Now we get to the fight, and apparently Alice's travels have taken her to Skywalker Ranch because she comes packing 6 beam katanas! Strangely, even though her blades outnumber your own, she has pretty much the same moves as your own. Oh, well, except for the lasers! Not only is this a challenging fight, but the atmosphere is incredible. The battle takes place on the roof at sunset. Wait. The fight is at twilight, just like the fight with Margaret took place during a full moon.
Mind blown.
Also, the music is surprisingly subdued and actually kind of somber, seemingly echoing the mindset of the combatants at this point. But what seals it, though, is the aftermath. As Travis deals the killing blow, he finds himself screaming in agony over the death of the greatest opponent he's faced. His battles with Little Miss Reaper and Mother Russia's space program may have given him insight as to the nature of his battles, but seeing Alice's blood on his hands pushes him over the edge. Seriously, this fight has so much going for it, not only in terms of its atmosphere and gameplay, but also in hammering home the message of the futility of violence and revenge. Certainly does a better job than Windows McSideQuest over here.
Nope, that joke's been done. I'm not doing it again. Number 3 entry, now!
Nostalgia is a dangerous thing. Yeah, in some cases it works, but in others it backfires horribly. If you want to do a boss that capitalizes on nostalgia, do it right like the weapons archive in Mega Man 10. Probably the most retro-style boss on this whole list, this boss is a loving tribute to the history of the series. Yeah, the 3 phases of this fight are spaced throughout Wily Stage 1, but the game still counts them as one fight. Each phase consists of 3 capsules mimicking the attacks of Robot Masters of the past. The Robot Master pictured corresponds to the attack being used. Phase 1 features Electman, Woodman, and Gemini Man. Phase 2 highlights Ringman, Napalm Man, and Flame Man. The final phase brings back Tornado Man, and we finally get to see what Slash Man and Frost Man look like in 8-bit form.
I meant officially.
Perhaps what impresses me the most about these fights are the little details that go into them. Most prominently shown is the fact that the weakness of each capsule is in some way related to the corresponding Robot Master's original weakness. But there's more. In the background, there are a series of blocks with 3 lit up during each phase. The blocks that are lit up correspond to the serial numbers of the Robot Masters featured in each phase.
Mind blown. Again.
Wow, Capcom, you really sweated the small stuff on this one. When it comes down to it, this is a boss that takes the nostalgia bomb and uses it to create an explosion of awesomeness. It's bosses like this that make me want Capcom to stop whoring out Street Fighter and give Mega Man a new lease on life. Or at the very least, sell the franchise to Nintendo. At least they seem to give a shit. In Sin and Punishment's Star successor, things start crazy and just get crazier. The first bosses consisted of a mutant hawk and a giant turtle monster among other things, but when I reached the end of the second stage, I just ran out of evens. The fight against Armand Ritter is pure insanity, and I love it for that. After a brief chase in which you dodge his beams of darkness, he decides to...
Try this on for size.
What am I even looking at?
The guy just transformed into a giant stingray, and now he's assaulting you with slime balls, missiles, bullets, and electricity. Obviously, here you have to take down his health bar by blasting him and deflecting said missiles, at which point he explodes into a mass of slime balls that you have to destroy for some odd reason. Of course, you won't destroy them all before time runs out, so at that point he transforms again, this time into a giant seahorse who seems to have studied Dr. Wily, because his arsenal now contains Gemini lasers and black hole bombs, and he'll also unleash bullets and spinning lasers as he protects his weak point. Enough damage now, and he'll attack with water walls and bouncing bombs until you cause him to split up into those slime balls again. Finally, he'll transform again, this time into a dolphin. No, wait, not a dolphin, 5 of them.
How does that even work?
These dolphins start by firing bullets and energy rings, then attack you by bouncing exploding beach balls your way, and finally throwing their weight around until you finish off Armand for good this time. Unlike previous bosses in which buildup or atmosphere contribute to the fight, Armand gets this high merely for the sheer insanity and excitement this fight brings. In a game that relies on challenge and gameplay above all else, you expect bosses to be fun and satisfying. In that respect, this boss nails it big time and proves that this game is one that is just begging to be played more. SeaWorld ain't got shit on this guy. As I've said before, Xenoblade Chronicles has become one of my favorite games of all time, and unfortunately I have to spoil a lot of it here. For most of the game, the primary villain of the story is the leader of Mechonis, Egil. As it turns out, Egil is actually a tragic villain, motivated by the devastation of his home at the hands of the god of the Bionis, Zanza. So when you face him in the core of the Mechonis, you don't want to kill him, you just want to stop him. I'm not gonna lie to you, this fight is awesome. Bar none my favorite non-final boss ever. And really, can you blame me? As the fight begins against Egil and his massive golden Gundam XP, you can immediately see how imposing he is. Not only do his attacks have a wide attack range, but they can also inflict statuses on you, such as topple and art seal, not to mention that they cause significant knockback. Not only that, but for every status ailment and debuff in the game, he's either resistant or completely immune, so you'll have to rely solely on your power and skills. Also, being the ruler of the Mechon, he'll occasionally summon smaller Mechon to get in your way. It does play out mostly like other fights in the game, that is until Shulk receives a certain vision. Now, most visions show an attack that will either cripple or KO your teammates, but this one... Oh crap, he just went there! At this point, it becomes a race against time to destroy the 3 control towers before Mechonis tears Bionis a new one the size of Yosemite. Thankfully, 2 minutes should be more than enough time to do so, and once you do, Egil will be stunned, his guard will be down, and your tension will be at max, giving you the perfect opportunity to finish him off. What follows is proof of how much Shulk has developed throughout the game. He has the perfect opportunity to kill Egil right there, but he ultimately stops himself from doing so. Instead, he tells Egil that he shares the same pain that he has, and that instead of killing Egil, he makes a vow to stop his blade for as long as it takes for the people of Bionis and Mechonis to find peace again. This fight has so many qualities I admire in a boss fight. Excellent gameplay, a true sense of tension, great music, sweet atmosphere, and even a display of character development. This is a showcase of many reasons why I love Xenoblade Chronicles so damn much. I'm the Quarter Guy, and...
No!
Shulk!
Dixon? You shouldn't have done that, little brat.
You son of a bitch!
little motherfucker!